There is a truth Machiavelli understood better than anyone. He doesn't need force. He doesn't need threats. He only needs to know what you desperately want to believe, and then use that belief to control you. It's not the strong who destroy the weak. It's the awake who devour the blind. This world isn't divided into good and evil. It's divided into those who understand the rules and those who live in illusion. Some drain your energy. Some make you doubt yourself, and others make you believe they came to save you. 6 kinds of people like that. 6 faces of danger. They don't destroy you with violence. They destroy you through the trust you give them. Pause for a second. Think of the person who exhausts you, yet you still can't walk away from. If a face appears in your mind, hold on to it, because Machiavelli will show you that person isn't an accident. This isn't a story about good or evil. It's about reclaiming your power in silence. By the end of this, you'll know how Machiavelli protected himself from them, not with violence, but with strategy. 1. The energy leech. Kindness without strategy is suicide. There are people who enter your life like a gentle breeze, but when they leave behind a storm you can't see. They drain you without ever doing anything wrong. They speak in trembling voices, begging for empathy. And in the moment you open your heart, they begin siphoning the most precious thing you have, your energy. Machiavelli wouldn't call them victims. He'd call them energy leeches. The weak who use pain as a weapon. They know how to turn your compassion into chains. They don't want help. They want you to keep helping. They don't need advice. They need attention every time you reach out your hand. They don't take it to rise. They pull you down so they won't have to be alone in their misery. Carl Jung once said, "When you heal others without awareness, you allow their darkness to infect your soul." But Machiavelli was colder. Kindness without strategy is suicide. These people always appear when you're at your weakest. They make you believe that only you can understand them. They tell tragic stories of pain, betrayal, broken childhoods, and you, driven by the instinct to be needed, become the only source of energy they feed on. But then you realize there's no progress, no healing, only an endless cycle of complaint, chaos, and blame. They don't seek solutions. They seek an audience. They don't want to escape the darkness. They want you to stay in it, so they won't have to be alone. And that's when you start feeling drained, doubting yourself, and even feeling guilty for wanting to walk away. Jung called this the cannibalism of the psyche, the slow devouring of your inner will. They don't drink blood. They feed on your spirit. Machiavelli saw them in every royal court. Those who lamented their fate, always close to power, always making rulers feel sorry for them. But he understood the truth. What they wanted wasn't help. It was the attention of the strong. And if you aren't vigilant, they'll drain every ounce of your strength just to survive. Machiavelli didn't deal with such people through cruelty, but through strategic boundaries. He never gave them access to his energy. He observed. He stayed silent. He kept his distance. Because kindness is a double-edged sword. When it lacks direction, it turns you into prey. Ask yourself this. Are you trying to heal someone who never wanted to be healed? Are you standing beside someone who leaves you emptier each time you meet? If your answer is yes, Machiavelli would say, you're not helping them, you're supplying the enemy. Learn to give without being drained, to help without carrying, to love without losing your boundaries. Because not everyone who appears weak is harmless, and not everyone who needs you deserves you. If kindness costs you your peace, it's no longer kindness, it's surrender. And Machiavelli never advised anyone to bow before weakness disguised as love. Keep that in mind, because Machiavelli will show you how to protect your energy without becoming cold. The art of giving without ever being taken. 2. The God Narcissist, the one who makes you bow. There are people who don't need a crown, yet still demand to be worshipped. They walk into a room, and the air itself begins to change. Not because they are powerful, but because they've made everyone believe they are important. Carl Jung called them the inflated ego, those who merge themselves with the image of a little god within their mind. But Machiavelli saw them more clearly. Those who make others believe they are the light are often just looking for a place to hide their darkness. The God Narcissist doesn't seek love. They seek devotion. They don't want connection. They want control. At first, they make you feel special. They look at you as if only you could truly understand them. They say the words your soul has always longed to hear. No one has ever seen you the way I do. And you believe it. You believe you finally found someone who sees your true worth. But in truth, they're only gazing at their own reflection in your eyes. When Machiavelli observed the Italian courts, he noticed that rulers always had attendants beside them, not to serve, but to reflect their power. A king without flatterers soon confronts the emptiness of his own soul. The god narcissist is no different. They need you to reinforce their illusion of perfection. The moment you stop admiring them, they begin to destroy you. From divine, they become judgmental. From loving, they turn condemning. Jung once said, "People do not own their shadow, they project it onto others." And Machiavelli put it more sharply, when they can't rule themselves, they will rule you to forget that they can't. When the god narcissist senses you no longer serve as their mirror, they turn you into the guilty one. Suddenly, every small mistake becomes proof that you've changed. Every silence becomes betrayal, and slowly you are trained to live in fear. Fear of losing their approval. That's how they maintain power. Not through violence, but through voluntary worship. A prison made of emotions. You are still free, but every choice you make revolves around them. Machiavelli would never confront this type directly. He would observe. He would listen, but he would never believe what they say about themselves. He knew that arrogance is the wine that reveals weakness fastest. And when they are drunk on their illusion of power, you only need to stand still. They will self-destruct. The god narcissist exists everywhere in politics, in religion, in love, and in those who claim to save others but cannot save themselves. They use your faith as a mirror to reflect their false greatness. But when that mirror shatters, they replace you in an instant. Remember this, no true God ever needs to be worshipped. Only fragile souls terrified of their own mediocrity demand others to kneel. If someone forces you to shrink yourself just keep their love, that isn't love, it's disguised worship. And Machiavelli would whisper in your ear, "Raise your head," because the one who makes you bow was never worthy to stand above you. 3. The invisible saboteur, betrayal by goodwill. Not every enemy wants to destroy you openly. Some only need a smile, a promise. And at the moment you trust them most, they accidentally make everything collapse. They don't stab you with a knife. They stab you with delay, with neglect, and with those soft, sincere apologies. Machiavelli called it the art of silent sabotage, when betrayal disguises itself as kindness. They never attack Hedon because they know a public blow would reveal them. Instead, they plant a tiny seed of doubt and watch as it grows, quietly rotting you from within. Carl Jung described this type as the unintegrated shadow, the buried weakness in the unconscious that mutates into envy, resentment, and false virtue. But Machiavelli saw them more clearly. No one ruins you more effectively than the one who says, "I only wanted to help." The invisible saboteur exists everywhere, at work, among friends, even in the arms of someone who once swore they loved you. They always have a reasonable excuse for every failure they cause. "I forgot. I was too busy. I only wanted what's best for you. I didn't think it was that important." Each small phrase like that is enough to make you doubt yourself. You start thinking, maybe I asked for too much. You adjust. You lower your standards until they can control you without even trying. This is a strategy Machiavelli called betrayal by goodwill, because nothing disarms you faster than kindness. A gentle apology can hide a strike sharper than any weapon. They make you feel guilty for daring to distrust them. They turn truth into illusion, and illusion into truth, until you can no longer tell where their fault ends and yours begins. Jung called this unconscious gaslighting, when the saboteur believes their own lies. But Machiavelli needed no theory. He simply observed and concluded such people do not fight with swords, but with calculated innocence. When you see them, do not react. Do not try to explain yourself, because in their game, the more you explain, the more power you lose. Instead, Machiavelli chose strategic silence. No argument, no confrontation, just awareness and withdrawal. Because every time you rage, they win. Every time you forgive too easily, they learn to strike deeper. But when you become silent, observant, and no longer play their game, they collapse. For their power only exists when players remain. The invisible saboteur cannot bear being unseen. When you refuse to join their performance, they must face the emptiness they've been running from. The one who stabs you in the back is less frightening than the one who smiles in your face. The person who says, "I only wanted to help," may be the one pulling you down. And Machiavelli will remind you, silence is the declaration of the wise. Because sometimes the best revenge is letting them realize you saw through everything and still smiled. For the eternal rival, the hunger for status, there are people who simply cannot stand to see you at peace. Your success makes it hard for them to breathe. Your smile makes them uneasy. They don't want you to fail. They just can't bear that you're doing better than they are. Machiavelli once wrote, "In every human being lies an invisible hunger, not for wealth but for status. The eternal rival lives to feed that hunger. Every small step you take forward feels like a threat to their fragile ego. At first, they hide behind congratulations. They say, 'I'm happy for you.' But their eyes tremble with the fear of being left behind. They accidentally bring up your past failures when others praise you. They mention someone else who also achieved the same just to feel a little less small. Slowly, they stop wanting to grow with you. They only want to pull you back to where they are." Carl Jung called this the shadow of the undeveloped hero. When a natural drive to compete becomes twisted, turning ambition into obsession. But Machiavelli saw it more sharply. Those who want to surpass you do not love victory. They fear being forgotten. The eternal rival doesn't need to start a war. They plant a seed of pressure in your mind, making you feel the need to prove yourself, trapping you in a game they designed. And in that game, there are only two endings. You burn out or they feel satisfied. Worse still, if you win, they'll seek to destroy your reputation. Because for them, glory means nothing unless they stand above it. In the courts of Florence, Machiavelli saw these people everywhere. Advisors, officials, generals who smiled to your face while secretly stabbing one another just to earn a single approving nod from the prince. He learned that envy is a fire that burns both the envious and the envied. And so he chose the only way to survive, to stand outside the game of comparison. The eternal rival cannot harm you if you refuse to play. When you stop proving yourself, you take away their fuel. You don't need to shine brighter. You just need to stop running their meaningless race. Machiavelli would never confront them directly. He would praise them just enough to expose their vanity and then stay silent as that vanity led them to ruin, because he knew every war born of jealousy destroys itself from within. Jung said, "When you feel envy, you are seeing the part of yourself that is yet to grow." But Machiavelli was colder. Your greatest enemy is not another person. It is the part of you that still needs to be validated. So when you face the eternal rival, don't fight, don't prove, don't compare. Become so still that they can no longer read you. Let your calmness drive them mad, because nothing terrifies the envious more than someone who doesn't care about their victory. If you must dim your light so others won't feel blinded, they don't deserve to stand beside you. And Machiavelli would whisper, "Don't hide your light to please the dark." Because when you stop fearing your own brilliance, you don't just win the game, you become the one who writes its rules. And remember, stopping the need to prove yourself is only the first step. Machiavelli still has one deeper lesson to teach: how to build an inner fortress no one can ever invade. 5. The chaos architect, oxygen from disorder. There are people who cannot live in peace. They breathe through conflict. They only feel alive when everything around them is falling apart. If you ever met someone who always accidentally makes the atmosphere tense, or someone who seems to carry a storm wherever they go, you met the chaos architect. Carl Jung called it the untamed instinct of chaos, the primitive part of the human psyche that fears emptiness. So it creates disorder just to feel alive. But Machiavelli understood them more simply. Some destroy to rebuild, and some destroy to be noticed. The chaos architect doesn't need a reason. They just need an audience. If you're calm, they'll find a way to create drama. If you're silent, they'll ignite conflict. If you're successful, they'll plant the fear of betrayal in your mind. Because in their world, peace is death and chaos is oxygen. At first, you think they're just emotional, honest, or too sensitive. But soon you realize wherever they go, division follows. Families, friendships, workplaces, relationships. Everything they touch slowly decays from within. Not because they're evil, but because they simply don't know how to exist in order. They're like a child raised in shouting. When a room goes silent, they create noise just to feel safe. Jung called it addiction to extreme emotion. But Machiavelli saw something deeper. The hidden lever of power inside chaos. Whoever controls the storm controls the crowd. That's why in every court, every company, every circle, there's always a chaos architect. Someone who knows how to create crisis to gain influence. They cause the problem, then step forward to solve it. And when everyone panics, they appear as a hero. It's pure Machiavellian strategy, turning disorder into a stage for power. The problem isn't that they create drama. It's that they know all humans eventually grow tired of peace. And in that fatigue, the first voice to speak becomes the one that's believed. Machiavelli's response was never anger. It was ruthless calm. He knew chaos cannot be destroyed through resistance, only neutralized by absolute order. Like a still mirror reflecting the wave back to its maker. If you react, you become part of their game. If you stay silent, they dissolve in the noise they created. Machiavelli would say, the most dangerous one is not the storm maker. It's the one who stands in the storm with eyes wide open. When the chaos architect tries to drag you into an emotional war, see them for what they are, a weather phenomenon. No anger, no fear, no pity, just observation. Because your composure is the one thing they cannot control and the very thing that will destroy them. Every time you react to the maker of chaos, you hand them power. Remember Machiavelli's words. Don't try to silence the storm. Learn to walk through it as if the wind itself moves for you. 6. The false prophet, the tyranny of virtue. Not everyone who speaks of light comes to enlighten you. Some speak of love, healing, and positive energy. Yet every word they speak becomes another thread binding your soul. They are the false prophets, those who use the language of awakening to manipulate the mind. Machiavelli once warned, when morality becomes a tool of power, the one who holds morality becomes a tyrant. The false prophet never says, I want to control you. They say, I want to help you find yourself. But slowly yourself begins to disappear, replaced by the version they allow you to become. Carl Jung called them inflated souls, those who identify with the image of the enlightened one, while their shadow still dictates every move they make. But Machiavelli saw them more coldly. Nothing is more dangerous than a man who believes he is good. The false prophet exists everywhere in religion, in self-development, in the modern spiritual gurus who preach unconditional love while living in absolute arrogance. They speak of liberation, but only if you keep listening to them. They speak of light, but it can only shine through them. They make you doubt your ability to heal yourself, then sell you the path to salvation. In Machiavelli's time, such men didn't preach, they ruled. They governed through faith. And he understood nothing is harder to break than a chain plated with virtue. When people believe they're doing good, they become more ruthless than open villains. The false prophet doesn't need authority. They need reverence. They feed on the energy you give when you admire them. Every compliment becomes a brick in the throne they sit on, and they protect that throne by making you afraid. Afraid of being lost, afraid of no longer being guided. Jung once said, the true teacher leads you to your own threshold and then steps back. But Machiavelli would add, the true guide shows you the path. The false one makes you kneel and calls it enlightenment. When you meet someone claiming to know the absolute truth, step back. When someone tells you that you must follow them to be saved, smile. Because truth needs no middleman and real light needs no torchbearer. Machiavelli's way of dealing with the false prophet was simple. He didn't attack, he exposed. He knew that those who call themselves awakened will eventually reveal their true nature, because false light cannot endure time. And he always reminded, trust your reason more than the words of any man who claims to speak for God. Learn to be silent amidst their preaching. For in silence, you'll hear the one thing they fear most, that you don't need them to be free. When someone says only they have the answers, ask, and who profits from that truth? Machiavelli would smile and whisper, A true enlightener needs no followers. Only a man afraid of his own darkness needs a crowd to believe he is the light. The shadow network, the web you didn't see. No toxic person exists alone. They connect like threads in a spider's web, each one playing a role. The energy leech, the self-worshipper, the silent saboteur, the obsessive rival, the chaos maker, and the false prophet, different in appearance, but identical at the core. They survive on the energy of others. Carl Jung once said, "When you remain unconscious of your own darkness, it will rule your life as destiny." Machiavelli called it the invisible network of power, a system where the powerless instinctively bind together to survive. Each of them is a link in that chain. And you, if you are unaware, become the prey trapped at its center. You think you're helping someone weak, but in truth, you're fueling an entire machinery of manipulation. The victim who drains you is quietly encouraged by the self-idolizing narcissist. The chaos maker relies on the silent saboteur to spread whispers. The enlightened fraud recruits the weary, binding them to his false light. It's not coincidence. It's the supply chain of the shadow. Machiavelli once wrote, "No regime collapses because of its enemies, only because of the naive within." And that is the role you often play without realizing it. The bridge between goodwill and deception. You give love, they weaponize it. You give trust, they turn it into leverage. Jung taught that everyone you meet is a reflection of yourself. But Machiavelli would add that reflection isn't there for you to empathize with. It's there to measure your boundaries. When you begin to notice patterns, different faces, same behaviors, you are witnessing the shadow network at work. Not because they consciously conspire, but because their instincts draw them together like predators drawn to the scent of fear. The more you give your energy without guarding it, the brighter you shine and the more they swarm. Machiavelli understood this better than any philosopher. In politics, he saw the same pattern. The incompetent forming alliances to destroy the capable, because when they cannot reach power, they try to destroy it, just like the people in your life. If they can't reach your light, they'll find ways to dim it. The only way to escape this network is not to run. Running only makes you weaker. The only way is to see it clearly. See without reacting. Judge without engaging. Observe without being pulled in. Machiavelli called this the art of strategic detachment, standing in the eye of the storm while keeping the calm of a ruler. Jung teaches you to understand the shadow in order to heal. Machiavelli teaches you to understand the shadow in order to rule it. And when those two meet, you are not only protected, you become untouchable. If you've ever wondered why you keep attracting the same kind of people, the answer isn't in them. It's in the part of you that remains untrained. Machiavelli would say, "Do not fear the darkness around you. Train your light until even the devils dare not come near." But seeing is not enough. In the final part, Machiavelli will teach you how to build a fortress of the mind, so that even when surrounded by darkness, you remain invincible in a world where everyone wants a piece of your mind. Power is no longer the ability to attack. It's the ability not to be invaded. The inner fortress, the art of ruling your kingdom. Machiavelli once said, "The survivor is not the kindest one, but the one who knows where goodness ends and foolishness begins." Carl Jung helps you understand the shadow, but Machiavelli teaches you to govern it like a kingdom. And the first kingdom you must defend is your own mind. Imagine yourself as an ancient fortress. Each brick your energy, each gate your emotions, and every person you allow to enter is a strategic risk. If you open your gates to everyone, you'll soon have nothing left to defend, because your enemies don't need to break your walls. They only need to make you open them with pity, with love, with the illusion of debt. Rule 1, never give energy without strategy. That doesn't mean becoming cold. It means giving with purpose. Machiavelli would say, "The wise do not close their hearts. They simply place guards before them." Rule 2, use silence as a form of power. When others don't know what you're thinking, they cannot control you. Silence is not weakness. It's how you force the world to guess. And in their guessing, you reclaim control. Rule 3, turn observation into a weapon. Most people talk too much because they fear silence. But Machiavelli knew it's in silence that human nature reveals itself. Listen to how they speak about others. for soon they'll speak about you the same way. Watch how they react when you say nothing, for in that moment, they expose what they most want to control in you. Rule 4, keep emotional distance. Jung called it differentiation, the ability to separate your energy from others without losing compassion. Machiavelli made it simpler. Treat everyone with kindness, but trust only their actions, never their words. When you learn to stand behind a wall of composed attachment, you can still love, you can still help, but you no longer bleed so easily. You become someone who sees, feels, and gives without losing yourself. Final rule, withdraw your energy from places that yield no spiritual profit. If someone leaves you drained, if every conversation makes you feel smaller, that's not drama. That's strategy calling for retreat. No arguments, no grand endings, just disappear quietly. Machiavelli would say, not every victory requires drums. Some victories are simply not being there to be wounded. That is the Machiavellian art of defense. Not building walls to hide, but fortify yourself to rule your inner kingdom. When you control your mind, no one can control your emotions. When you protect your energy, every manipulator dissolves like smoke. If you still feel the need to explain yourself, you are not yet strong enough. Machiavelli would remind you, the truly free don't need to be understood. They only need to be respected. And that respect begins with how you protect your own energy. The awakened and the asleep. You've lived too long in a world that taught you this. To be loved, you must be weak. That if you're gentle, you'll be respected. If you're honest, you'll be trusted. If you're kind, you'll be protected. But Machiavelli looked straight into reality and smiled bitterly. No one is protected because they are good. They are protected because they make others afraid to harm them. And that is the lesson you just walked through. 6 types of people, 6 faces of darkness. They don't just exist out there. They live within you. They are the primal instincts buried deep inside, the part that craves to be needed, making you pray for the energy leech, the part that longs to be admired, making you kneel before the self-worshipper, the part that fears conflict, allowing the silent saboteur to invade your boundaries, the wounded part that competes just to be seen, the restless part that fears stillness and unconsciously seeks chaos, and the arrogant part that believes it's already enlightened. Machiavelli never wanted you to destroy these parts. He wanted you to see them, because once you can see them, you're no longer being manipulated by them. You begin to command them. Carl Jung said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. And Machiavelli added, once you master your own darkness, you'll never fear anyone else's again. That is a shift from victim to awakened, from the control to the one who understands a game. And when you understand a game, you don't need to be ruthless to be powerful. You just need to be aware. This world doesn't reward the kind. It rewards those who keep a bright heart beneath an armored soul, those who can love without dependence, trust without naivety, stay silent, and in that silence, command the entire board. That is the art of powerful silence, where you no longer need to speak to be understood, prove to be respected, or win to be free. Because true power isn't about controlling others. It's about making yourself impossible to control. You no longer live to be loved. You live to be free. Free from the leeches who drain you. Free from the need to be admired. Free from the games of comparison, chaos, and false enlightenment. Free from the weaker version of yourself. The one who once believed kindness would save the world. Machiavelli would say, do not let kindness turn you into prey. Sharpen it until it becomes a weapon forged in awareness. And when you do that, you don't just step out of the darkness. You begin to rule it. When you can sit in silence without fear, look at the one who hurt you without trembling, forgive without becoming weak, step back without losing, and smile without needing to be understood, that is when you become Machiavellian awakened. No one said this path would be easy. But if you've made it this far, it means your soul is ready for the next level. The level where kindness has structure and silence has strategy. Remember this, the world is not divided into good and evil. It's divided into the awake and the asleep. The asleep are led by darkness. The awake use darkness to see. And if you choose to awaken, continue on this journey. Because in the next stage, we'll go deeper into the Machiavellian art of the human mind, where goodness is no longer weakness and power is no longer sin. Because as Machiavelli once said, you cannot change a world, but you can train yourself so well that the world can no longer change you.